part, everybody wants to get on that pound for pound list so that they can use it as a bargaining chip to make more money.
No, champ, pound for pound lists are a new thing because back in the day, the reason pound for pound became a thing is because Sugar Ray Robinson was so damn good that he was the guy. He was the pound for pound guy. And then somehow that all got into an offshoot where now, well, we're going to rank guys as if we're doing this theoretical brain experiment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to Boxing Scene's Top Stories only on ProBox TV, your boxing channel. I am George DeMatteis. Quick reminder to download the ProBox TV app where apps are available to get the full ProBox TV experience, which includes our European debut November 1st. From beautiful Belfast, Northern Ireland, we'll have a tremendous fight card featuring Pedro McCrory and Leonard Carrillo. And ringside there at Belfast in Northern Ireland, we will have our world champions calling the fight live ringside. In Northern Ireland, Belfast, we have Chris Algieri and Paulie Malignaggi joining us here on Top Stories. Well, today marks the 50th anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle. October 30th, 1974 in Kinshasa, Zaire, Muhammad Ali beat a heavily favored George Foreman for the heavyweight title, an iconic fight, historic sporting event for the activities and the environment surrounding the fight as well. All right, Chris, what should promoters and boxers take from this historic occasion as an example of what the sport was and what it can be so that they can make the best fights possible and kind of resurge the reputation of boxing?
Well, I mean, it's the best fighting the best, and that's what it's all about. You know, at that stage, those guys when they met each other is basically like two titans meeting each other, and there was a tremendous amount of marketing power behind that. You get Muhammad Ali, the Louisville Lip, the guy. I mean, could sell any fight, didn't matter who he was fighting, no matter how old he was. And you had George Foreman, who looked like an absolute destructive destroyer, unbeatable. Like he didn't even look like a human. The way that he was able to knock guys out and the ability that he had. I vividly remember him hitting heavy bags and just big right hands and bending them in half, and like it's larger than life personas and abilities, and they're meeting in their primes, and we just don't see enough of that anymore. On a past show, we were talking about the fact that we never saw Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder fight, a fight that we talked about so much. England versus USA, you got these two heavyweights, put them in their prime. That could have been the kind of fight that like Ali and Foreman had that kind of aura where you're taking two guys in their primes, having them fight each other. The amount of eyes and dollars behind that kind of fight, it's really upsetting and sad, and speaks to what the issues are in boxing today, that we couldn't make that fight happen, but they could make a fight like Ali and Foreman. And not only was it a great buildup, not only was it a great matchup, but it actually lived up to the hype. The fight was dramatic. It was incredible. You think the boxer Ali is going to go out there and dance. No, he sits on the ropes and takes a beating from on his body, does the rope-a-dope, the quote-unquote rope-a-dope, and Foreman is just ripping him apart. But then Ali is talking the whole time, talking in his ear, telling him he doesn't hit that hard, telling him, you don't got it tonight, George. And then he knocks Foreman out. He KOs the destroyer. So I mean, on top of it being such a massive profile fight, it lived up to the hype as well, that it was an interesting fight, even though it wasn't back and forth per se. It was a very interesting way the fight that played out, and the fact that Ali was able to get the knockout. So it just goes back to what boxing used to be, where the best are fighting the best consistently, and the whole world was watching. If we can get back to that, even to some degree, it would be an amazing thing. It would be fantastic for our sport and for the fans involved.
Yeah, Paulie, what do you make of the anniversary of the Rumble in the Jungle and how it can impact, or people can take from that experience and apply it to nowadays?
I think it's something that should be celebrated, honestly. I think it's something that, is such a big part of history. That era in heavyweight boxing is widely regarded as the best era in heavyweight boxing. And if you notice, nobody was protecting their O, or nobody was protecting their record. They were going in from one guy to another to another. Remember, Foreman at this point was undefeated, yet he'd already mowed through Joe Frazier, Ken Norton, George Chuvalo. He wasn't the guy protecting his O. He was trying to take on all the best fighters, and everybody in and around that era was also trying to do the same thing. It was Ali was always known to take on the best fighters. As a matter of fact, Champ, you mentioned they're both in their prime. Ali was widely regarded as being a little bit past it at this point, and then he pulled off the upset. Let's forget, yet he'd even fought Frazier again just a year earlier. And so it was you got this clash of these two guys that are larger than life figures, and such a big part of the heavyweight picture. And this is why we're still celebrating it today with the anniversary. It was a starstruck performance, a starstruck fight, and then a starstruck performance by Ali, and that he pulled off the upset against this destroyer who was downright scary. A lot of people were really just scared of him when they talked about how what a force George Foreman was. Let's not forget, Frazier had been heavyweight champion and undefeated himself, and Foreman had obliterated him in winning the title, dropping him 6 or 7 times. So this was just, you see how the storylines built themselves back then, and then they actually came together with fights. That's why boxing was so loved in those days. The storylines built themselves up. Fighters coming up the ladder, being, building up their reputations as excellent fighters, and sort of, the storylines sort of create themselves in that way, and you have a demand for the fight, and then you actually make the fight, and you make the fight in people's primes, you make the fight in people's best days of their careers. You're not trying to marinate it. You're not trying to say, why does this sell, or what this doesn't really sell, and all, and so on and so forth. All the garbage you hear today. There's so many fighters trying to pad up their records, and these corny fan bases that actually cheer this crap on just to see their favorite fighter knock out Uber drivers. It was a different era. It was a bygone era. You talk about what you can learn from this. You would have to, I've been saying this all day today here in Belfast. We're talking to the media. You would have to revamp everything. You'd have to revamp the way the business is structured. You would have to revamp the fact that, fighters are so punished when it comes to, taking a loss even at a high level, so that they don't want to take these risks all the time, like those fighters did back then, who were consistently rewarded for taking the high risks. Even if they took L's, they were brought back. Like I said, Ali had lost to Frazier. I mean, had beaten Frazier in the rematch not that long before, so. He'd taken a risk even in getting Frazier again, a guy who had just beat him, in order to earn this shot at Foreman, right? So, I believe he may have lost to Norton before this as well, so he'd also taken an L in between the Frazier loss and this, so it was really such a fun time, because you didn't have guys getting so punished for the losses because of the way they were losing. They were still staying in the big picture. And meantime, other guys were entering the big picture, the Ron Lyles of the world, the Ernie Shavers of the world, Jerry Quarry was around, so you still had all these other guys that were still kind of, positioning themselves in there as well. And everybody just fought everybody, man. And that's the bottom line. Everybody just fought everybody. We're seeing a little bit of that with the heavyweights today, and with Riyadh season coming into the play. But overall in boxing, you need to revamp it, a little bit, because you still see a lot of this padding records and branding, padding the brand, so to speak. And, like I said, you basically gotta exit these kind of fighters out of the sport, and you gotta exit these kind of fan bases out of the sport as well. And if you do that, you can kind of sort of aim to reach the standards, the very high, excellent standards that those fighters of the 70s and 80s put on.
Yeah, that kind of, to piggyback off of your point there, that was kind of going to lead into my next question there, Paulie. Is it kind of, we know that Rumble in the Jungle, those two great fighters, it's a unique experience, but is there any way that you can come close to repeating that kind of environment and that kind of vibe? I know you mentioned some standards there that need to change, but is it impossible in 2024 to come close to something like that?
Yeah, who knows? That's always you can't be really dogmatic about it, giving answers like that, right? Because you can't really see for sure. You don't know. But I mean, you hope so. There's still always excellent fighters in every generation. So it's. I don't think the problem is boxing not creating talent. I think the problem with boxing is the talent not fighting itself. And I think you're seeing a little bit more of that. The problem that I have is that when these fighters all fight each other, they end up taking L's, because they fight one great star, and they fight another great fighter, then fight another great fighter, and then all of a sudden that's not rewarded. The fact that they fought so many top fighters in a row, and then they may have taken an L in the process, and now they're suddenly looked at as, oh, he's not as good. Look at this guy, he's undefeated. He's on the pound for pound list with 40 cab drivers, but he's your favorite fighter, right? Instead of the guy who's giving you entertainment, fighting the top guys consistently, constantly, all the time, and chasing the best opponents available all the time. And then I think that's what was rewarded back then. It's not so much rewarded now. You do see it a little bit, especially like I said, at ProBox TV and with the odd season. But again, guys who consistently try to fight this kind of schedule will get beat. And then what happens is the standard. That's why I said you need to also have a sort of a changing of the guard, so to speak, and eliminate idiot fan bases, idiot media pundits, and sort of, bring in that educated base again, where they value entertainment value, they value the best fighting the best, and they value the fighters that actually try to pursue this, as opposed to picking a favorite fighter and wanting to see him win at all costs and not caring if he fights Uber drivers in the process. I think that the fans in general were just more educated. And honestly, I don't know if they had pound for pound lists in 1970s. I wasn't alive. I know the term pound for pound was brought up because of the name Sugar Ray Robinson, but I'm not sure that it was as talked about back then, because also the problem is when you create pound for pound lists, who's on pound for pound lists? Guys who don't get beat. And for the most part, everybody wants to get on that pound for pound list so that they can use it as a bargaining chip to make more money.
Champ, pound for pound lists are a new thing, because back in the day, the reason pound for pound became a thing is because Sugar Ray Robinson was so damn good that he was the guy. He was the pound for pound guy. And then somehow that all got into an offshoot where now, we're going to rank guys as if we're doing this theoretical thought experiment to match these guys that you really can't do. When it first came to be, it was like, oh no, Sugar Ray Robinson, he's the pound for pound best fighter who's ever lived. That's the guy. Not a list where we're going to rank fighters in some theoretical, game.
And that's why I said you would need to revamp everything. You need to get the idiocracy out, and that means both from a fan base perspective and from a media perspective, because it's the idiocracy that has helped to.
Listen, it's fine in a barbershop. It's fine, but we shouldn't be having real pundits talking about pound for pound like it matters that much, or like it's a real thing. Like you said,
like I said, it makes guys not fight each other.
Creates an issue. It creates an issue. It does.
Yeah, very interesting there. And Muhammad Ali, he's the greatest of all time, and he has 5 losses on his record. Now, he's won 50-plus fights, of course, but that chasing
he's the greatest of all time because of both what he stood for outside the ring, but also the fact that he didn't pick and choose. He fought fighters at their best all the time. Didn't wait for guys to get past their. He didn't look at Sonny Liston and he was a big underdog and say, let me marinate him a little bit. Let me let this wait. No, he wanted to set the record as the youngest heavyweight champion ever. So he fought Liston when Liston was still very, very dangerous. He didn't let it marinate, so to speak. And then when he was exiting his prime, he took on the best fighters in their prime. And like we're talking today, the anniversary.
And even when he was past his prime, he was taking on fighters in their prime. He didn't care.
I was going to get there, champ. Yeah, I was going to start from the beginning, got to the middle, and then I was going to go to the end.
Excuse me, champ. Excuse me.
That's all right, champ. But here's the thing. I mean, even with the George Foreman fight that we're celebrating today, he was taking on the next generation's, elite, and he was looked at already past his prime. And then, like the champ said, later on, took on Holmes. He took on, Spinks was, didn't turn out to be great overall, but at the moment he took on Spinks. Spinks was a gold medalist. He was 8-0. Again, it was the next generation's up and coming stars. He took them on too. And he even fought Burbick, who ended up being the guy who Mike Tyson knocked out for the heavyweight championship later on. So Ali kept on fighting these kind of guys. He was ultra competitive. And I'm not saying this is the way you always got to be, because obviously it led to some damage, but there needs to be a balance here. It can't just be about branding and money and looking to screw people out of their hard-earned money by fighting cab drivers and selling it as a real fight. But at the same time, you also don't want to put yourself in harm's way. Ali clearly didn't need the money. His estate was worth tons of money even when he passed away. So it wasn't about the money. Ali was just too focused, hyper-focused on being the best. And right now, there's less fighters that have that mentality. You should be chasing greatness. And I think fighters are chasing the branding of greatness, while not necessarily always wanting to fight each other. And I think that needs to be put to an end.
Yeah, both Ali and Foreman each suffered 5 losses in their career, and nobody is looking down on them for those losses. They are still considered all-time greats and beloved figures in the world of boxing. Also want to check out a couple of articles about the Rumble in the Jungle on boxingscene.com. One of them is called 50 Things You Did Not Know About the Rumble in the Jungle, listing 50 things that you might not have known. Very interesting article there. And also one from the Foreman perspective, humbled by the Rumble, George Foreman eventually moved on and rose again. Definitely want to check them out on boxingscene.com. Also, scan the QR code, like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Leave your comments as well. Download the ProBox TV app, where apps are available, because on November 1st, a couple of days, live from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Jimmy Smith, Chris Algieri, Paulie Malignaggi will be ringside in Northern Ireland for a great fight card with the main event featuring McCrory versus Carrillo. You definitely don't want to check it out. Definitely want to check it out on the ProBox TV app and YouTube channel as well. I am George DeMatteis, and this is Boxing Scene's Top Stories.
November 1st, ProBox TV makes its European debut in collaboration with Conlan Boxing. This stacked card starts with hometown fighter Padraig the Hammer McCrory returning to the ring to take on the hard-hitting Colombian Leonard Carrillo. And in the co-main, the UK's Robbie Davies Jr. clashes with former two-weight world champ Javier Fortuna of the Dominican Republic. Live from the SSE Arena in Belfast, Northern Ireland.
For more ProBox TV, scan the QR code on the screen or go to the App Store and Google Play. ProBox TV, your boxing channel.